Good morning, Mark. How was California treating you this morning?
Wonderful today. Sun's out and life looks good.
Fantastic. I've been thinking a lot about your story since we last spoke during our intro chat. There is something timeless about how one man's loss become a calling to legacy and service.
Yeah, it really, it's really a profound event because I not only lost just my father, both my mother and father were killed in a car accident tragically when I was 8, and that started me with a need to have a father figure in my life. My grandmother came and raised me. She was my mother's mom, but my grandfather had already passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dynamics of this whole event is kind of hard to explain because at that point in time, there was no counseling or anything. Nobody sat and kind of tried to help us through that loss process. As a matter of fact, in my book, I quote a couple of things, but what Tony Dungy makes this brilliant statement. He says, "Fatherlessness is a silent epidemic. It doesn't just leave children without a dad, it leaves them without a part of themselves."
Right.
And that truly was the sense I was struggling for of who would lead and guide me, because I lost that intimate element of who helped create me, my dad. So
Yeah.
it had a huge impact.
Yeah. I know we're going to go deep into what it means to lead without having been led and how your life was shaped by the absence of one voice and the presence of so many. Let's jump in. The following is a conversation with Mark Motsenbocker. I hope I pronounce your family name correctly.
Wonderful.
An executive leader, mentor, and author of Searching for Father. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we delve into how personal loss can shape lifelong leadership, service, and faith, covering genuine stories and insights that truly matter. To support our show, please check the episode description. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Such a privilege to be in your presence.
You're welcome. So your story is one that hits a universal chord, I must say. Loss, the search for meaning, and the impact of those who shows up along the way. Let's start from the beginning. Take us back to the moment that changed everything for you, the loss of both your parents when you were just 8 years old. What do you remember about that time, Mark?
December 28, 1964. And I could close my eyes and really relive that moment because it's forever embedded in my mind. My parents left about 5:15 one evening to go to a dinner. My father was a pastor. And my oldest brother, he was 10 years older than me, was babysitting me and my little sister. And my brother got a phone call. I distinctly remember the call saying, "Hey, your parents haven't arrived yet. Is everything okay?" And he said, "Oh, they left at like 5:15. Well, this was like 45 minutes later. They should have been there in like 20 minutes. And then, tragedy happens in just such dramatic ways. The next door neighbor was an older couple. They were in their 70s. He comes over to our door about 50 minutes later, knocking on the door, looking for my dad. And their names were the Ottmans. And he said, my wife's had a problem. She was on the phone and she's passed out. And my brother said, Dad's not here, but I would call for help. You need to probably get her to a hospital. They left. And eventually an ambulance comes and they take her away. But, and then probably about an hour after that, my grandma came through the front door and she said, they're gone. They're not going to be back again. And So kind of a shocking way to hear that my parents had just vanished. And there was 5 kids left, brother 10 years older, brother 8 years older, brother 5 years older. I was 8 and I had a little sister that was 3. But, the amazing thing was the world, and literally I have a book, the world came to help us and support us. We had money sent from all over the world, every continent on the globe. People sent us money to help us financially. There's over 2,000, 3,000 people at my mom and dad's funeral. And the outpouring was just amazing. It was just
Yeah.
tough, but it was amazing.
How did you navigate that kind of shock and loss at such a young age?
I think I know I cried a lot because it just was a tragedy. I think maybe the telling moment for me and my grandmother was about a year after my parents passed away. It was going into fall of the next school year. And she came to me and said, "We need to clean out your drawers and give you some new clothes and set things up." And I got a little nervous because in the bottom drawer, I had been hiding some stuff, not for any apparent reason other than exactly what I'll tell her. But she goes through the top 3 drawers and she gets to the bottom drawer and opens them, and there's some pants and a sweater. And she moves this stuff, and underneath that is every lunch bag she gave me that previous year with my name written on it. And she said, what is all this? And I looked at her and I said, "Grandma, I've been keeping those because if I lost you, I wouldn't have anything. I don't, So that was the struggle I was going through. How do you retain? How do you keep? How do you make sense? And really for me, the shock was my grandmother only gave me one birthday party. It was when I turned 13. And I had this notion in my mind that my mom and dad were going to be there, that I had just been living a really bad dream and everything was going to be fine. But they never showed up that day. And so that was kind of the pinnacle of saying, okay, life moves on now. I think I kind of grew up that day, to be honest with you.
Did you feel like you were immediately thrust into survival mode, or was it more gradual?
I became rather fearful about any and everything. And my grandma, bless her heart, she was a great lady. She really was. She was the most precious thing I've ever touched. But, she would see it in me and she would say, "Mark, the sun's going to come up tomorrow morning." And I always thought, what does that mean? The sun comes up every day. I mean, what does that mean? And she was really in her own way. And over time, she will nurture me with some really profound things. But in her own way, she was trying to say, tomorrow's a new day. Embrace tomorrow. Don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the things of today. Tomorrow, you have a great opportunity. So she did have a huge impact on me in that way, helping me kind of resolve to constantly think forward. And she was a giver. So she was grandma to everybody. There were ladies in our neighborhood that were older than her. They called her grandma. Everybody called her grandma. She was just grandma to everybody. Yeah. So
what did the absence of your parents teach you about presence later in life?
I think life is exactly what you want it to be. So I have this mindset that I've carried pretty much most of my life, but life is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And so I've tried to constantly think about what is it that I can do to make my life the most of what it is, right? We get to choose every day. That's what's unique about us, right? Part of the book is I talk about this whole issue of when you think about the world, it's really a giving entity, right?
Yeah.
The vegetation of the world doesn't produce fruits and vegetables they consume, and the snow and the rivers, they don't consume the water they provide, and the fragrant flowers, they don't take in the glorious smells they make. The moon and the sun, they don't consume the light they produce. So the fact that all these elements of what we have in our world and our universe really are there essentially to provide for our benefits, and they're constantly giving and nurturing. to make life better. I, in my role in work and teaching college, I kind of came to a conclusion in life that doing for others what no one else is willing to do is the real crux of life, right? It's this whole thing about giving, right? And I think that's the empirical lesson we can learn from nature, right? That it's a giving entity, right? And so my life has been really, I'm a giver, and I think my grandmother had a huge influence on that with me. But I've come to the conclusion it's not just your monetary, it's your time, it's your energy, it's your emotions. There's all these things that you can give as you walk through this thing called life. And truly, I was blessed by the 26 men that are in my book because they gave to me. They gave affirmation, they gave support, they gave encouragement, they gave focus, they gave development. And then they all helped me. I'm a fanatic, so to speak, about habits. So habits are really, really important. That's an essential element of, because we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence or greatness then is not an action, it's a habit, right? I do those things.
Yeah. No, I'm listening to you, and I love the way you talk about your grandma. God bless her. It's quite evident that she played a vital, huge role into shaping your values. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mark, you've spoken about routines like preparing lunch bags. What did those acts of care mean to you?
I think with every encounter you have in life, right, you've got to kind of think through. I can say this, but there's always a reason we meet people, right? It's either that they're going to have an influence on me and make a change for me, or I'm going to have an influence on them and help make a change for them. And so I think the premise that was so profound for me through those actions was that understanding that everybody I meet has the potential to give me some of the best of who they are. But I have to be kind of conscientious of that, right? It just doesn't, you can get so busy in life that somebody can do something nice for you. You can just blow it off like, oh, well, that, and you're on to the next thing. But that's not really what life's all about. I'll tell you a prime example. I'm 20 years old. I've bought a house with my brother, and I'm going one day to a record store to get a new CD by Elton John. And I pull out on the boulevard, and as I start down the road, I see this little old lady.
We need to explain to our younger audience what a CD mean. Or a cassette, for example.
Yeah. So it's a disc that has music on it, and you put it in a machine. But But here's this little old lady standing on the street corner, and she's got a flat tire in her car. And I initially thought, that's my grandma, right? And so I pulled over. And I got out of my car and I said, looks like you got a problem. She says, I don't know what to do. I said, well, if you're okay, I'll change your flat for you. And she goes, really? I said, yeah, I can do that. So anyway, I start working on the flat. I get the car jacked up. I get the tire off. And she starts talking to me about, well, where did you grow up? And how long have you lived here? And we're kind of talking about where I grew up. And I told her what street I lived on. And she goes, oh, really? Oh my goodness. And she goes, and where did you live on that street? I said, well, I lived down by the riverbed, down from there. And all of a sudden she stopped me. She put her hand on my shoulder and she goes, you're not one of the Motsenbocker boys, are you?
Wow.
And I was like, well, I said, yeah, I am. I'm the youngest one. She goes, I've been praying for you and your brothers and sisters. And today your parents died.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you could have knocked me over with a feather. And then she wanted to give me money. I said, no. And she says, no, you have to take the money. I said, no, keep praying. That's the real value of what you're doing, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But that's the way life works sometimes, right? Here's this woman, and I found out from my grandmother later, she had collected clothes and brought us clothes as we grew up because we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a pastor and didn't own the house we lived in. And so amazing story.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Did you see your grandma as a mentor, or was she more as an anchor in the storm?
She was kind of everything for me. My brothers and sisters will tell you I was her favorite one.
Aha.
Uh,
So there was a
and
little bit of jealousy there.
yeah, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I think I was the only one that never wanted to hurt her. They all did things that,
Okay.
left her distraught at times and left her hurt. But I tried to never do that. She was priceless. She really was. She was disciplined. I was born in 1899 on a farm. And, I was the only kid I knew in all of school, this is the truth, that had to make my bed every day before I left the house. And all my friends would say, "That's crazy. Your grandma makes you make your." I said, "Yeah, I know." But it was all about discipline. She was really about saying, you got to be disciplined. You got to be disciplined. And so I didn't, I stayed the course. I tried to make her happy as often as I could because she'd gone through a lot.
Yesterday, Mark, within my church, the Catholic Church here, we have Wednesday afternoon from 5 p.m. men's group. So we get together between 12 to 15. We get together and every week we have a topic that we talk about. We brainstorm, we reflect and stuff. And yesterday's topic was about suffering, and what suffering means, why suffering exists, why it is part of life, and listening and talking and listening to everyone experience. And it gets at some point overwhelming, to be honest with you. We come up with this kind of takeaway that suffering is part of the journey, that it doesn't matter how much you're going to plan for the future, like tomorrow or next week or next month or next year or in 10 years, you have no idea what will come towards you, how you're going to deal with it, what are the tools that you have that will help you. Yeah. And the main takeaway was, as long as there is life, there is hope. And there was this question, and I would like to ask you that question, if you don't mind, is how do you typically respond to suffering with trust, frustration, or avoidance?
I'm a firm believer that this whole concept of the earth being a giving entity is crucial for us as human beings. And so let me see if I can weave the perspective in here. I do believe that we are what we do. I do believe that. And that makes more of us better equipped to do more of who we are. So when I start thinking about this whole giving thing, look, we create some real struggles for the earth. Human beings, we mess the earth up pretty bad.
We do that,
and it's very
we are good at it,
and it's very adaptive, right? Yeah. And so there's this interdependence that's not optional with us and the earth, right? And I think it's a crucial concept because we live within and through the earth. That's how we live, right?
Right.
But our task is not to master nature, but to learn to live in labor and harmony with its generosity. Mm-hmm. And I think the principle here is the earth doesn't give to us because we deserve it. It gives to us because giving is what the earth does. And so this whole thing about suffering in life really is, it's an element of life. You're not going to get away from that. Mm-hmm. Christ suffered tremendously, but for us. But here's the pinnacle point, right? Jesus says, "For God so loved that he gave." That's what he says. So he says, love is the pinnacle element and answer to all of life. And the action of love is giving. And Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." So what makes us unique to the rest of the universe is we get to choose. And this is, to me, a really, really important concept for everybody to grasp a hold of, right? Because God gives us a choice. And in doing so, God gives you and me control over what enters and shapes our inner life. And from that place, we have this opportunity then to impact the world. And I believe it's through giving. I mean, when you think about it, the whole rest of the world doesn't get to choose. The sun can't come up tomorrow and say, "I'm so burned out on being hot, I'm going to chill for a bit." No, that's not happening, right? An apple tree can't produce any other fruit than apples.
Right.
because that's the way they're designed. But we get to choose. And so I do think that this is a pinnacle moment, because richness and goodness is not made by what we possess. It's by what we give.
Right.
And you make your life meaningful by applying the meaning of giving. So what is suffering, right? That's a question I've asked myself many, many times. How bad can it be? But you're right. It's all about the hope.
Yeah.
And hope is the critical factor of the future. You don't have to look back anymore. My grandma said the sun's going to rise tomorrow. She said that from knowledge and understanding that every day is a new day.
Yeah.
I can't change the past. I can't change my parents' death. I can't change any of that. But I can change tomorrow. I can change tomorrow. And that's really what this book is all about, right? Quote Winston Churchill. To each there comes a time in their lifetime, a special moment, when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do an incredibly special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for what could have been their finest hour. I got to experience these men in their finest hour. God provided that path to come together.
Yeah.
And that's where it happened.
And on that, you mentioned being shaped by 26 father figures. Who were few that stand out most to you?
You know, there was a coach, Coach Lane. So I'm in junior high. I'm about 5'10". I weigh about 120 pounds. I am stick and bones. That's it. There's nothing. I turned sideways and stuck out my tongue. You'd think I was a zipper. I mean, it was tragedy all over the place, right? So I would go to gym every day, and I would never get picked to be on a team. I was always the last guy left, and then I went to whatever team, right? And I never got to play. I just never got to play. They'd look at me and think, if we put you out on the football field, you're going to get killed. If we put you out on a basketball court, they're going to knock you down, trample you. If we put you in, you can't even hold a bat. I can't tell which one is the bat, right? I mean, it's that kind of, so coach comes up to me towards the second semester, my first year in junior high, and he says, "Hey, I want to meet you out in the field today. I got something special for you to do." I said, "Okay." He says, "Let me get the game set up." So he gets the game set up, and he comes towards me, and he's got some golf clubs in his hand and a bag of balls. And he says, "Let's go." And we walk out there. He puts the balls down. He shows me how to hold a club. He gives me some instructions for about 10 or 15 minutes. And he says, "You practice hitting balls. And every day when you show up for gym, you just come to my office. You get the club and the balls and you go out there." And so that's what I did. And it was okay at first, but he kept coaching me. He'd come out and give me, do this stance, do this. You got to think about this. Watch where you're looking. Keep your eye on the ball. Anyway, I get a little bit better somehow, some way along the way, but I kind of grow to kind of become interested on it. And here's the kicker. He'll come out just periodically and he'll say, "That looked good. You look good. I think you're getting this." I'm thinking, okay, well, he believes that. I believe that. Okay. The end of that year, he gives me, calls me to the office, my last day at school, and says, "Here, I got these for you." And he gives me a set of golf clubs. I can't even imagine to tell you how important that was to me, that he gave me something. And then he came by my house the next day, met my grandma, took me to a golf course that I could ride my bike to, introduced me to all these people there, and said, "Now you come here every day and you practice golf. And when you come back in the fall, I want to see how good you are." So I did that. I had 2 paper routes to make money. I'd throw my paper routes. I'd tape my clubs to my bike, and I'd go there and I'd play and then horse ride. Anyway, I come back in the fall, first week of school. He sees me and he says, "Hey, you're going to have to show me what you've learned this summer." And so, long story short, he meets me out in the field. He brings a bunch of jump ropes and he lays jump ropes out to make boxes. He makes a box about 30 yards out, 60 yards out, 90 yards out. And he drops 6 balls down. He says, "Let me see how many you can get in the first box." And I got 5 out of the 6. And he looked at me, he came over, he punches me on the shoulder. He goes, "That's amazing." I said, "I don't know about amazing. I didn't get the 1 in there." He goes, "No, that's a." So then he goes, anyway, to say the least, he set me up for success, and he kept me out of trouble, because when other kids were out looking for trouble, I was busy at the golf course. And so that's a real simple story of his affirmation, he took me golfing a couple of
And
times. By the time I went to high school, I could par just about every public course in Southern California. I was good.
right,
I really
yeah,
was.
yeah. And on that, Mark, was there a moment when you realized he was filling that gap in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could tell you today, I love Coach Holland, right? I mean, I just did
Yeah,
because he gave me something, that the affirmation, the assurance, the encouragement, the discipline, right? And and when he took me golfing the first time, I mean, I would say 90% of our conversation was, "What do you think your approach should be here to this shot? And where do you want to place the ball on the green?" And man, he started making me think about a lot of things that I kind of, yeah. The pin was the only thing I was ever concerned
mm,
with. And he started saying, the topography of the green is important because if you're not going to hit the pin and knock it in the hole, then you got to figure out where you want to play it. Do you want to play it high? Do you want to play it low?
right,
And it was just, nobody took that kind of time with me, right?
yeah,
I mean, it just was priceless. That's all
yeah,
I can say.
yeah. Let's talk about the trash can story. Why do simple acts matter so much to you?
Well, so I've kind of become, obsessed isn't the word, but I really have been kind of intentional about giving to people, whatever that means. And so I lived in a beautiful neighborhood. I was on a cul-de-sac. There were 5 homes on our cul-de-sac, and all the houses were set 75 yards from the street,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
beautiful. You drive through the neighborhood, it's pretty wow, 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 right? But then the first time it snows and you have to shovel 75 yards, 2 car wide across, it's not so wow anymore. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
this is crazy. Who would have thought you wanted to put a house this far away from the street? But I come home one night, we had to drag our trash cans down to the street. And I come home one night and I knew the guy across the street was on a business trip. We had talked the weekend before and her trash cans were out there. And so I thought, I should take her trash cans up. So I stopped my car and I rolled her trash cans up to her
mm,
house. There's 3 of them. So, I'm doing 75 yards up, 75 yards down, two trips. And then I get in my car and I start driving down, and then I notice another neighbor, their trash cans are out, and I think, do love your neighbors yourself. What does that mean? Okay, so anyway, I take the trash cans up, and that kind of became a habit then
hmm,
for that
hmm,
time. Every evening the trash cans were out, I would take them all up. And so fast forward a few weeks later, it's Christmas, and we have a neighborhood get together of the adults for an evening, and it's these 5 homes. So there's 12 of us there, 6 couples, and somebody says, "Hey, who's doing the trash can thing?" Right? And I said, "Trash can thing? What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, somebody's been bringing my trash cans up." I said, "Nobody's been bringing mine up, so I don't. That doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? You know." Um, Evidently somebody will watch me eventually. And so I come home one evening and my wife says, "Look at this." And here's a card that somebody had sent me in the mail. And I open it up and it was, "Thanks for being the trash guy," and a gift card in there. Now, my intent was never to do that for
right,
anything other
yeah,
than, I wanted to be a nice guy. I wanted to help. I wanted to do something. I get 2 more of those cards over the course of the next week and a half or so.
yeah.
Um,
It started to
and
spread.
then yeah. And then I get home. I mean, I'm away on a business trip, and my wife calls me, and we're talking in the evening. She says, "Oh, and by the way, guess what? Somebody brought our trash cans up today." And I was like, "You got to be kidding me, right?" So
That's
you kind of
nice.
reap what you
It's
sow.
nice.
I truly
Yeah.
believe, Proverbs 11:25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshed others will be
Mm,
refreshed." And I really do believe that God has created this whole act of giving as kind of a cycle of divine abundance,
mm,
right? I mean, when you do good for people, it comes back to you somehow, some way.
yeah.
And I mean, just bear with me for a second, but imagine what a world would be like where everybody gave. Everybody
Oh
let
my
you
God. Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Everybody said, "No, no, you go ahead of me."
Mm,
Everybody said, "Hey, I'm going to pay for this for you.
mm,
I'm going to cover that. I got this. You want to talk? I want to listen."
mm,
Just imagine if our world was a
yeah.
giving
Yeah.
place, how much better
And
everything would be.
absolutely. And that's what makes as well the community. It doesn't matter where we live on earth. That's what makes the community come together, bond together, support each other, help each other. We're talking about suffering earlier, and you cannot predict when the next event is going to hit you, good or bad. Maybe one of the best tools to go over it's the community support, and
Yes.
yeah. And on that, Mark, do you think we've overcomplicated service in our culture today?
I I studied history. I taught college for about 11 years part time, and I really tried to help students understand the importance of, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it, right? That's a sad scenario for a lot of people, but I do believe that. But I, I I hate to label groups, society, cultures, but I am kind of caught up, concerned. I've got 4 children. I've got 11 grandchildren with kind of the meism. Everything's about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole thing about influencers and what does that mean? And because I do believe that our world, I believe the more high tech our world becomes, the more high touch they are. You can't get away. You can't live life without people. Isolation is that's a big struggle. You want to talk about really suffering? Put somebody alone by themselves. They'll suffer more that way than any other thing you could do to them. Send your child to the room and say, you stay in there until you can come out here and say, I'm sorry. And they'll suffer in that bedroom for no apparent reason other than it's isolation. I can't be with the rest of you. I can't participate. So I do think that the giving thing changes the dynamics, and this doing for others what no one else is willing to do. It's powerful. Why? Because if I do something for you, Sid, something that's uniquely a need for you and nobody else meets that need, when I'm not around, there's a void in your world because only Mark can fill that. Oh, Mark's the best listener. He's the best. He's the true ear to everything. And he takes it all in. And I don't have to say anything a lot of times. I just need to be there for you. Right. So yeah.
We're talking about the beauty of today's life, or let's say the consequence or the result of our prosperity as a human species. And the little ones, you're talking about your kids, your grandkids as well, God bless them. How do you teach them, or how do you teach the sense of appreciating the simple things in life from a value standpoint?
Well, I'll tell you the most important thing I've learned in life, maybe, is that modeling is everything. When I say we are what we do and we get more of what we are because of what we do, that's a critical moment in life. And so I don't have to tell people what to do. I just need to model it, right? St. Thomas Aquinas said, share the love of God wherever you go, and when needed, speak, right? Love is the action of giving. That's the whole thing, right? And you can't refute the giving. I'll just tell you, you can't refute it. When people do, I remember stopping one day in New York City when I was working there, and this little old lady was waiting to try and cross the street, and the traffic just wasn't stopping. And I said, can I help you get across the street? Well, actually, I smiled and said, hi, how are you today? And she grabbed my arm and said, I can't remember the last time somebody looked at me and smiled and said, hi. And I said, well, can I help you across the street? She goes, would you? I said, sure. So I took the time to kind of begin to step out in traffic and stop traffic. And she came up, grabbed my arm, and we walked across the street. And she was like, this is the nicest day I've had in a long time. And it wasn't any big deal, but that act of just being there and seeing the need and helping her meet the need and walking across the street, but those are the kind of things that I think you can intentionally do if you have the presence of mind to do that.
Yeah.
All these men knew that they were providing something for me in a special way. I don't think they knew the gravity of it at times, but they knew for sure that I was appreciative, and they knew for sure that they were having an impact on me.
Mark, was there a moment where someone's kindness radically shifted your perspective? Besides your grandma.
Yeah, I would say with these men, Uncle John, who wasn't my uncle, he was my dad's best friend. We ended up living about 3 blocks away from him. He was a woodworker, and and he was always willing to give me time. If I went over and Uncle John was there, he would stop doing what he was doing, and I became kind of his center of attention. And he gave me all kinds of life lessons. He gave me things to think about, right? You know, choices, decisions, right? And I was 9 years old at the time. I mean, I still remember that first Christmas. I got a brand new bike, and the first thing I did was ride it over to Uncle John's to show him my bike. And he's having Christmas with his family, but I show up Christmas morning at like 7 o'clock, and I knock on his door, and he comes to the door in pajamas, and he goes, "Oh, Merry Christmas!" And I said, "Look at my bike." And he came out. He had everybody in the family come out. Everybody cheered for me and my bike and everything. I mean, that was a pinnacle moment because he took me from just being nobody to somebody. And he was a godly man, but he really had a huge interest in me. And he spent the time with me. And that was very refreshing and very rewarding and very needed.
Mm.
But so I think it started with him. I think I was the only non-family member who was a pallbearer at his funeral. And that was because it was Uncle John and Aunt LMA. Aunt LMA said, you're going to be a part of Uncle John's funeral. I want you to be there.
Yeah.
So
Let's go back and talk about Coach Hall. What was it about him that helped you see yourself differently?
well, I would say it was really about his focus on accomplishment and discipline. But I think it was really more about affirmation and confirmation that I was headed in a path that was of value. And that impressed me more than anything. You can't, I'm very reflective. I'll get off this call today and I'll think about what I could have maybe done better because that's what my life is all about. It's about improving me. I'm not worried about improving. I'm not worried about what anybody else does. I got to be responsible for me and make myself better. So I don't compete against others. I compete against myself because I can enrich myself that way. And Coach Holland really helped me understand that was an important element of life, right? You can become what you want to be, but you have to pay that cost. There's a cost to life.
Yeah.
It doesn't come for free. And so this, you study Genesis, and I'm in a men's Bible study, and we've been going through Genesis, and God says life's going to be work. My kids hear this; they heard this. My grandkids hear this already, right? The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. You want to be successful? I don't care what you do. You want to be successful as a speaker. You want to be successful as a father. You want to be successful as an employee, as a leader. It's going to take work. And Christ makes it even more difficult, right? Greatest in the kingdom is servant of all. First in the kingdom, number one in the kingdom is what? Slave of all. Well, that's suffering. I'll just tell you, that's some real suffering, right? Because there's times I don't want to serve. No, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to go help with that. I don't want to. I got other things I want to do, and that's that meism, right? We're constantly trying to fend off the self-interest. It's not about me. It's about the kingdom. It's about God's love.
During our intro chat, we spoke about a topic that so many people is facing is depression. When did you recognize that you were battling depression?
It was a struggle for me, and it was a struggle for me mostly when it was things happened in my life I couldn't control. I had no control over. It just things happened, like the death of my parents. That was a struggle. And then there would be issues that would come up that I really had no control over. And I would get depressed and I would sleep. Whenever I got depressed about anything, I would just sleep. Why? Because I wasn't awake. I didn't have to think through it. I didn't have to worry about it. And so my grandmother had to be put in a home eventually. She couldn't really care for herself. She couldn't move in with me. I had a 3-bedroom house. I had four kids. There was no other bedrooms. But so we worked to put her in a place. And I went to buy her some books because she was a voracious reader. And while I'm in line at the bookstore, I see this book on a stand and I pick it up and I flip the book over and I read the back cover and I'm thinking, this is me. Good grief, this is me. All the things. Do you struggle? Do you have, is this your, and so I bought the book. I took it home that night. I read right up to where you have to take an assessment. The book was called Learning Optimism by Martin E.P. Seligman. Brilliant work. And really, it was all about self-talk. So this is why I'm so focused on my mind and what I do with my mind. And I learned through his interaction in the book that you can change your thoughts. Okay. You can change how you talk to yourself, right? So here we are. We walk through life. For us as Christians, there's this adversity against us all the time, drawing us somewhere where we don't want to be, thinking things we shouldn't be thinking, desiring things that are of no concern or hurtful. And so Seligman's work helped me come to grips with the fact that I wasn't pessimistic. I could become optimistic. And I'm a very optimistic guy today. I went to one company and worked there. I did all kinds of seminars. I spoke to about 18,000 employees, and they gave me the nickname Dr. Feel Good, right? And I'm like, feel good? What is that? You always make us feel good. Like there's hope. There is hope. There's all these opportunities in life, right? It's not problems. We don't deal with problems. We deal with opportunities, right? So, and every ending is a new beginning. So every suffering is a new growth. It's a new change for us. That's just the way life works. So that book changed my life, really did. I mean, it had a huge impact on me. And I've never had depression since then. Never. Wow. Because when I feel it coming on, I know how I can combat that mentally because self-talk is just destroys you.
And how about faith? Did faith help you work out depression without getting stuck in it or no?
I think faith gave me hope. And actually, I called Seligman, got him on the phone. He was a professor at a university, and we talked. And I said, you say this hope score. There's a hope score on there which says how hopeful or hopeless you are. Now, hopeless doesn't mean you're a hopeless case. It just means you have little or no hope. You don't even see hope, right? I said, but you only have like 2 paragraphs in the book on this. He goes, I know. I got to work through that. He goes, it's important though, isn't it? I go, hope is huge. It's what makes people want to get up and go.
And Mark,
do tomorrow.
Yeah. And if someone listening now feels alone right now, what would you say to them?
I'd say the world has so much to give us, and all the people in the world have so much to give us. But I'd say you have to have a mindset that always looks for the best. And that's not naive. That's not immature. That's just there is good in the world everywhere we go. And there are good people in the world everywhere we go. But you need to emulate what you want to receive back, right? So being kind to people will always come back to you, right? But so, this whole thing about life requires us to be certain things to receive certain things. And I think the more we do, if you're mean to people, everybody's going to talk bad about you and everybody's going to be disregarded of you and everybody might be mean to you or they'll just look for the fight every time they get together. But if you're generous with people and kind to people and giving to people, you will. I mean, some people say, well, some people just take advantage of you. Well, I do believe God asks us to be prudent. And I do believe that he asks us to use discernment. And I do believe that he will help and guide us to say, this is not a valuable relationship. I need to move away from this. This is not going to help me grow. This is not going to help me get better. But I think there is good in the world. And I think there's places in the world where you can look for good. Far be it for me to tell you, this is the place you need to be, right? I just think when you have hope, there's a better way to get through to tomorrow. You can read all kinds of books about people who've gone through, World War II.
I was reading an article a couple of months ago, statistics about antidepressant And I was so shocked to see that the US, it's ranked number one. Then you have all the Western countries, mainly Europe here, and we prescribe antidepressant like we are prescribing water to drink.
Right.
And you
Right.
said earlier, you referenced that we live because our lifestyle, because of, I don't know, development, prosperity, that we are more detached, more isolated, put it this way, the sense of community. You spoke about that example of the trash can. You were helping your neighbors, which is for some, it's something tiny that doesn't have an impact. But for so many, that small thing has a huge impact. But what I wanted to say is, especially for our audience or folks listening to this, if you feel isolated, if you feel there is no exit, you're hitting a wall, you are cornered, speak up, seek help. Just speak up, especially for dudes that feel ashamed to talk about any mental issue for fear that we will be, we will be pictured as we are crazy. So don't be ashamed. Just speak up. Talk to your family, to your confidant, to your mentor. Just speak up. Never give up. And like we said earlier, as long as there is life, there is hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe God has a plan for us. My kids will help you. They'll tell you. Well,
I mean,
I'm sure
it's
if
funny.
you ask.
It's funny talking about this. Just the creation. If we believe in God or we don't, just asking the question: who created all this? Who did all that?
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, God has a plan. He had a plan of sheer goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And everything started from there.
Yep.
Yeah. Just don't give up. Don't pull the plug.
Right.
Yeah.
No magic formula to life. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, but there's just huge benefits from putting the effort forward to attain what you get. And I have a brother who's suffered, the one just older than me, 5 years older than me. He suffered his whole life from my parents' death. And, he's called me. We talk all the time, but he called me maybe about 3 months ago and says, I don't know what's happened, but I woke up this morning and I feel alone. And I need somebody. I need, and he just went on and on and on and on. And so, he knows that my job is not to judge him. He's lived his life. He's done his thing, but I'll always tell him the truth. And he knows that. I'll always tell him the truth. Right. Yeah. And so, that God's in control. Nothing happens in my life by accident or fate or luck. And it's none of that stuff. He's in control. And I get to choose whether I want to be under the guidance of that control or whether I want to veer off and go do something that's not what he has suited for me best. He always has my best interest in it. I jokingly laugh about, God saw that it was good and said that it was good, and it was good, right? So God's standard, his standard, the pinnacle of God's work is good. Man makes things, designs things, doesn't create anything, by the way, but assimilates things, builds things, designs things, and they're phenomenal, outstanding, stupendous, incredible, beyond belief, excellent, right? Since the beginning of time, the sun still shows up, the trees and the plants still grow, and the rabbit's still running. Everything else man's designed or built or that they fall apart, they rot, right. They go away, right? But God's standard is good. He doesn't say he saw that it was phenomenal, said that it was phenomenal, and it was phenomenal. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's a standard that I often think is really important for us to understand. I want to do good in life. Yeah. I just want to do good.
You've led businesses and people for years. What's your approach to leadership today?
Well, I do think that it's all about people. It's not assets make things possible. People make things happen. You want to be successful in whatever you do. I don't care what business you run. I don't care if you're in the military. It's all about people. So you have to have a vested interest in people. And when I say vested, it means you got to give them your time, your energy, your emotions, be above and beyond everything else. That's really what it comes down to, right? I found some of the best things I did at work was just listen. I got women that work for me. They've got kids that don't listen. They got a husband that wants to do their thing. They got this going on. They got that going. Their parents got health problems. They got issues, right? And all I have to do is just sit and listen and say, geez, I'm sorry to hear. Oh, well, tomorrow it'll all get better. My grandma used to say all the time, she took Luke 2:1 says, and it came to pass, and she paraphrased the rest of the verse. Thank God it didn't come to stay, right? So, things move on, things go forward. But in all honesty, many times in my career, I didn't really have to do much for people. I just listened. And when you listen to people, that's kind of priceless because most of our world doesn't want to hear. I got my own problems, Sid. I don't need to hear yours.
Yeah.
I got my own issues. I don't need to try and help you figure yours out. But you don't have to figure them out for people. That's the beauty of it. You're just there.
Yeah. We keep hearing so many definitions about leadership, so many, and there is so many experts all over the world talking about leadership and leadership style. Shall we lead from a style standpoint, by accountability or empathy, or shall we mix both? I mean, it's a non-stop. Mark, with all your experience, how you define leadership?
Greenleaf wrote a great book in the 70s called Servant Leadership. Had a huge impact on me. It's a difficult read. So if somebody wants to go tackle that, they're in for a treat because he's a very brilliant man who puts God first. But he says, the best way you can lead in this world is being a servant. And that's really what Jesus was. And he's impacted more people than anybody else that's ever walked the face of the earth. But I really think it is serving people. And that's really giving. That's really what it's all about. That's the challenge in life, right? How do you do that consistently? And how does it make sense? Because we're driven by self-interest. I've studied that pretty emphatically. And that's the struggle we have. I want to be known as a good dad because I want other people to look at me sometimes and say, he's such a good dad, right? So there's a self-interest in and above all of that you do.
It's human nature.
But it really is. Yeah. But and of course, Genesis tells you in Genesis 9, we're evil from birth. It's just, you're born and it's there, man. You can't get
it. Started with Adam and Eve.
Yeah. So no magic formula. It's a long obedience in the same direction, right? It's just choosing to walk this way, this path, and stay focused on that. But I do think I would tell people serving is really probably the most important element of leadership.
Like it.
When people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? That's really where it all starts. And if you show that in your leadership skills, you'll win.
Thank you for the advice. Thanks. How does your faith shows up in everyday's life?
Well, I would say I am kind of lead by example, and so I do things because I think they're important to do, and I'll do things for my kids because I think they're important to do. But I'll do things for neighbors or friends or people at church or people I work with, right? So I really try and live to be what I say I am. And that's not easy because there's days when I make a commitment to do something for somebody. And then I think, I'd really rather not do that today. But I don't, once I make the commitment, I don't back out. So that's it. The good thing is always being willing to say, I learned a long time ago, yes is the difficult answer. Saying no to people when I grew up in the grocery business, you came in and said, hey, you don't have this. Can you get this? No, we can't get that. That's the easy thing because I'm done, right? When I say, yes, I can get that for you, then I own that. And I have to do more then in order to do that, right? And so it's as stupid as it's going to sound to you, customers would come in and ask me for something that was a competitor down the street. And I'd say, that's no problem. I can get that. And so I just took an end display in my store, and it was special request. And I'd just go down and buy 3 of those, and I'd put them on there. When it got back down to 1, I'd go down and buy 3 of those and put them on there. But customers talked in the neighborhood about, this is the guy that will go find what you need and have it there for you, right? And so, again, doing for others what no one else is willing to do.
Yeah.
It's the choices, but it's a commitment though. Once you do that, once you go down that path, you're hook, line, and sinker. You're stuck on that one.
Yeah. What do you say to someone who have lost faith in faith itself?
Well, I'd say, there's hope in the future, but you've got to stay connected to the source. That's all I can tell you. And my brother said to me, I don't really want to go to church. I don't want to be a part of the church. I said, well, that's a piece of it for some people. Mm-hmm. That community is important. That support group is important, but you got to stay connected, right? You watch people. I go to the airports now. My wife and I laugh all the time because you'll have 2 people sitting together. You'll have a whole family sitting all together, and nobody's talking to anybody. Everybody's on their phone doing this, right? And the FaceTime, the FaceTime on that thing, or whatever, the time that you put into that day. I often think to myself, imagine if everybody here was spending this kind of time with God. What a better place this world would be, right? You 4 hours a day on your phone, and you don't spend 2 seconds a day. Unless you need something from God, you say, hey, God, help me with this one. Help me with this one. Come on, get me through this. But I think faith is an important piece of people's lives because it's the best in what you have potential for.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift gear and talk about mentorship. Do you see mentorship fading or simply evolving in today's context?
In the big scheme of things, I don't know that it's, our world lives in fads, right? In the 90s and early 2000s, there was this catchphrase, at the end of the day, you should have done this, or at the end of the day, we want this, or and the end of the day is not important to me. It's at the beginning of the day, right? I had somebody say that in a meeting, and I'd step up and I'd say, okay, let's not talk about the end of the day. It's done by the end of the day. It's the beginning of the day. When it starts, that's when we should be thinking, what are we doing now at the beginning of the day, right? So I do think our world has kind of faded from the mentoring aspect. I'm involved in that at a university that I work with. I started a mentoring program at our church this last year. I've got 15 guys. One mentor is taking on 2 different people. I stay connected with these guys. They would all tell you emphatically, hands down, this is the best thing I have in my life right now, right? Because they get to talk to somebody and ask questions about things that they really don't have knowledge or understanding or experience about, right? And Proverbs is replete with, if you want to be successful in life, get counsel. Go to the people that can give you guidance and direction, because it'll take you way too much time to figure it out. And guess what? You may still make the wrong decision, right? So get counsel, go out and seek people. So I think mentoring has a huge opportunity in our world. If you go online and search mentoring, there's really not a whole lot that's available out there for you, to be quite honest.
Because it's becoming more as a buzzword than anything else, And how do you, because I get this question quite often, and in terms of what does real mentorship look like? Period.
Yeah, it's just spending time together, right? Jesus, I believe, truly mentored in a very dynamic way the apostles. And it was as big as 72 people he had with him, following him and consorting with him, right? But they got to see everything he did. And this is the modeling piece, right? So I'm very conscientious when I speak with somebody that I give lots of eye contact, that I listen, that I may go back to something they said. And I think what impresses people the most, this is just me saying this, but you and I meet, and then I talk to you about later, you tell me something about your mom, And the next time I meet you, I say, hey, how's your mom doing? Right. And that means something to people
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
they've talked about their mom to a dozen people and
Mhm.
nobody else has ever asked that
Yeah.
question. Right. So I'm not trying to make myself exonerate myself in saying what I'm saying right now. I'm just saying that's part of what we need to do. I mean, I do think we need to be thoughtful about everything we do,
Mhm.
and engage with people at an intimate level of, as much as I know about you, I can be with you and for you.
Mm. I think mentorship, especially for leaders, I think it should feel natural, not force.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be natural. It has to be natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. So, how many grandkids you have?
I have 11. We had 11th one came. They were all 5 and younger. So I have 6 boys, 5 girls. So it's a nice mix. When we had 5 and 5,
Yeah.
I said, this is the making of an annual basketball match between the
How
boys
do
and the
you
girls.
manage? How can the managing in a way where everyone is pulling or trying to get your attention? It's like this big piece of cake, and everyone wants a piece of it. You know?
Yeah, it's so none of my kids live local.
Okay.
I live in Southern California. I've got a daughter, her husband. They have 4 kids in
Hmm.
Dallas. I've got a son and his wife. They have 2 kids in Denver, and then I have 2 daughters back east. One has 3, and her husband, and then the other daughter and her husband has 2. So we only get together at Christmas. So usually it's in the first or second week of January. Flights are cheaper. There's not so much havoc or chaos at the airports and all that. And so we find it's either somewhere in Virginia, Denver, or Dallas, but we find a Airbnb or
Yeah.
Vero, and grandma and grandpa we rent the place and everybody shows up, and we have it used to just be 4 days, and then my kid said, man, for all the trouble to get here, we should just make it a week. So now we do a week.
Yeah.
And so, but it works out great. The kids
Yeah.
love to see each other because they don't get to see each other all the time. And then my wife and I, she's better. She does more than I do. She works still from home,
Mhm.
so she's an accountant. So she goes and sees them, but we go and see everybody for a week or so during the year. So we get some pretty good.
Yeah.
And of course, you can do FaceTime and that
Yeah.
stuff. It's not quite the same, but they're getting old enough now. They've figured out how to get on the phone, and they'll call me, and
One thing.
they say, "Hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no." They'll just call me and say, "Papa, I just wanted to say hi. You look good," and then they'll hang up. Right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay,
One thing that stood out. You said chaos, and that word mean wow. Chaos is good.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
mean.
it
Yeah.
is. It
Chaos is
is.
good. That means it's life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
What do you
beautiful.
want your grandkids to understand about who you were?
Well, definitely, I think they all know I'm giving.
Hmm.
They understand that, and I'm willing to sit with them uh, and do what they want to do. So that some of them are artists; they want me to sit and draw with them.
Hmm.
Some of them want me to build things with them. Uh, I like to walk. A couple of them will walk with me wherever I want to walk. They'll take the walk with me. Um, but I think I want them to remember that I was always there for them. This is going to sound kind of a little naive maybe, but I decided when the first one was born, I wanted to be the first one to write to them.
Okay.
So I've written not all of them yet because I decided after I did a few of them and they got them on their second birthday, it didn't mean anything. So now on their 5th birthday, I give them a written letter for me. And then I put a $2 bill in there and I tell them, this bill is very unique. There aren't a lot of those. And you're very unique. There's nobody else like you. Right. So it's those kind of things which they'll be tucked
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
and put away. But at some point in time when they're 16, 18, 20, 30, they'll read that again.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that will bring back a lot of memories of Papa.
What's the legacy you hope to leave?
I hope to, well, I always want the world to be a better place because I was here.
Mhm.
So I hope my legacy says the time I spent with Mark was a value, and I'm better because of it. So I think that's the legacy I want to leave. Hopefully my book's helping people see I can get more out of life, but I got to be conscientious about what I do in giving and receiving.
Yeah.
But it'll make your life better.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book. Is it available on Amazon or?
Yeah. It's available on Amazon. It's at you can get it through Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million. There's several places you can go that route for it.
So walk me through the writing process. How did you do it?
I started talking about it years ago because as I was going through this life growth thing, there was different people that would step into my life at different times to meet different needs, but mostly just to support me wherever I was at and whatever I was doing. So I retired early last year, and one of the first things I said was I really should write the book now. I've got the time. And so I started working on it, and it got published May of this year. And it took me a little while. It was an interesting experience because I would start writing about a person and I would have this emotional flood to the point where I'd have to get up and just walk away. Yeah, just walk away. I'd just start crying.
Yeah.
The moment, what I was talking about, the experience and the interaction.
Do you had to cut a lot during the editing process, or?
Not too much, to be quite frank with you. The editor gave me some guidance, but mostly it was more about syntax. You can't say this and that in the same sentence. Okay. Well, I was kind of deeply involved in what I was thinking, not so much what I was writing. So.
And did you have your favorite moments? Do you write in the morning, evening, or?
It was pretty much every afternoon. I'm an early riser, so like I was up at 4 this morning, but and that's just my nature. I don't think I'll ever stop that. It was usually I have things that I do. So like every morning, I send a devotional to all my kids. I've done that for a couple decades now. It's just kind of I'm trying to help them stay connected to God. Hey, this is the important thing in life. Don't, this vertical is way more important than the horizontal. So, but you got to stay connected, right? So, so it was about 10 o'clock and I was probably working on it a good 4 days a week for maybe 4 months, about 3.5, 4 hours.
And do you start with the beginning and the end, or the end, and then you start from the...
It's kind of a work in progress. So it's what you have in my book is a linear, starts from when I was like 8 years old all the way through to today. The 26th gentleman is somebody I just had lunch with last week. About every 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, we meet for lunch. He's a lawyer. He's in his late 70s. He's still practicing. I love the guy because he's full of vim and energy, and he's an immaculate dresser, and he's the complete package. I think I say that at the end of the
wow.
So it's a linear progression. But as I was writing it, I began to think about, I need to have this element in the ending. So I kind of went and started plugging stuff in at the end. I came across some things and I thought that should, it's part of my finishing. The editor coached me a little bit about, I think you should have something here on this. And so, I think it was a pretty smooth process. It's not a difficult read, but I've had unsuspecting, unfortunately, I was at a funeral last week and somebody came up to me at the funeral that I'd worked with and said, "Hey, somebody told me about your book. I bought it." He goes, "It's awesome."
Wow.
I was so impressed. He goes, "And it wasn't tough for me to read." He said, my wife said, you don't read books. He goes, "I know, but it's Mark, so it's not a real challenging read, but I think it's informative. And I think it's thought-provoking."
Excellent. You are listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Now it's time for our lightning round. Ready for speedy Q&A?
I'm ready.
Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee.
Coffee. First job you ever had?
First job I ever had was a paper route.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing newspapers in the evenings, and then I got another route.
Yeah.
Gave me some spending money.
Worst career advice you ever gotten?
Oh, wow. I would say you're only going to get to the top if you fight for it. That's so far from the truth. It's not, there's no fight. You become successful by being who you are and what you do. And when, I told my kids growing up, right? Your boss asks you to do 10 things. You do 11 every day.
Right.
Just do one more thing, something unsuspecting, but just do one more thing. Do it with excellence. Do it with desire to make an impact. And people notice that kind of stuff.
They do. A quote that grounds you.
This is going to sound a little funny, but Thomas Jefferson is a great mentor of mine. And so I have a quote from a student. A student found this and gave it to me. It's a drawing of him, but it's his quote. He says, "I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it." And I believe that that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Fantastic. Favorite book you've ever read?
Well, I would say it's the Bible, but the one book I have read that had a huge impact on me was Thomas Henry Huxley. In 1851, wrote a book called Technical Education. So this quote's in all my syllabuses, but it's permeates my life. He says, the real benefit of education is that it forces you to do what you need to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. I'll say that again.
Yeah.
The real benefit of education is that it forces you to do what you need to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. He says it's the greatest lesson a man can learn, and all too few learn it all too late.
Lovely.
And so, I think that's true.
A leader who shaped you deeply.
I would say Chuck Swindoll was a pastor at a church that I went to for about 18 years. And he had a huge impact on my life and my thinking. I was there every Sunday. So I got all the good stuff from him, but personal friend, just a man of integrity is not even the pinnacle with him. He's just a godly man.
Mark, if you could have a dinner with a historical figure, who would it be and why?
Boy, I've read so many people. I'll tell you who really fascinates me, and I would like to sit with him, is Blaise Pascal.
Okay.
He's a rock star in my mind. He writes things. I read his stuff sometimes and I think, I've been thinking that for decades. And he just put it in 6 sentences. That's exactly what I've been thinking all along. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, number one, and had a love for the Lord, but he's amazing. He's just really amazing.
Yeah. What calms your mind?
And I would say quiet time with God. There's nothing. Jesus often walked away from the disciples and disappeared. He wasn't disappearing. He was out spending time with God. But I would say, I start my day with prayer. I end my day with prayer. Those are the very first things and the very last things I do. And I'm my calmest when I'm there.
Yeah. What scares you most?
My wife. No, I don't know that I really have any fear in this life, because I know when it ends, there's a better life for me. So it's not, I guess maybe if there, I don't know, I wouldn't say, I want shortcomings on my part, but I don't think that's really a fear. That's just, I gotta stay diligent.
And what makes you hopeful?
Well, Jesus makes me hopeful. No doubt about that, hands down. That's there's a better. I'm going to get to see my parents. I'm going to get to see my grandma. There's a better day coming beyond this life.
Yeah. Best way to unwind after a long day, or let's say after a tough week.
This is the truth. So I'm going to tell you the truth. But ice cold IPA that touches my heart in ways that it's just soothing and refreshing, and yeah,
Fantastic.
it's good.
And lastly, Mark, a piece of advice or wisdom to our listeners on any topic.
I guess my advice is work, and I mean that sincerely, work to become the best of what God wanted you to be. And that's a work in progress. The dynamic of life is that change is a constant, which is kind of a paradoxical comment, right? Because it's, how can it be constant if it's constantly changing? But, we evolve in this life. We change in this life. The hope, I think, should be for everybody to be a better you, whatever that means.
Yeah. Mark, thank you very much. It's been an honor to have you on the show.
It's been a privilege to be with you, Sid. Your programming is just absolutely amazing, and God is blessing a lot of people because of you. I can just tell you that.
Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes I ask myself, I'm just a messenger. Try to connect people and hear and listen and learn and learn.
Well, just remember, John the Baptist was just a messenger, but Jesus said he was the best.
Yes, he did.
So,
and to our listeners, I leave you with the few words from Benjamin Israel. The greatest good you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own.
mm-hmm.
And on that,
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, and see you soon. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.